All right. Hi, Mary. How are you?
Good. How are you? Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too. Thank you for coming on the show. I appreciate it.
Well, thank you for having me.
So, you are an author of children's books,
Yes, I
Poohlicious?
Poohlicious.
Oh,
Yes.
Poohlicious. Okay. That's a takeoff on Winnie the Pooh, I suspect. Yeah.
Yeah, it is that, and it's also, I really love Dr. Seuss, and I like breaking the rules with words for children because it makes them giggle and laugh, and children's imaginations are so big, and they love silly words, and so that's kind of where the word came from.
Okay. So, what age groups are your books primarily aimed at?
Well, the first one, Perfectly Precious Poohlicious, is pretty much newborn to, I would say, up to age 1 or 2. I'm an advocate for special needs and disabilities, so the books can go for various ages in there, depending on where a child is at, functioning and their abilities. But the first one is primarily for newborns up till about 1 or 2, and the second book goes from about 2 to 4 or 5. And then the third one that will be coming out this month will go up to age 7, like 5 to 7.
I assume the book that's for newborns is for the parents to read to them, correct?
Yes. Yes, and it could be a really good first reader for children who are learning to read to their younger siblings. So the pictures are big, the font is big. What I have learned with my own children is even when they're in those early stages, when babies are, they can't see very well, and then their vision is coming in, holding a book in front of them and, kind of starting them out on that love for books and literacy very early on, I think is very important. But the ability for them to see the colors and the big faces and the big letters, you can start them out at any age. And I noticed that with my own children. It was a very calming thing for them when they were little. I mean, we're talking wee wee, they're not even sitting up yet. So that's why I say newborns, because it is about a baby that's still being held in a mommy's arms, and sitting in one of the bumpies, maybe on a table or on the floor. So, but yes, it's a little baby wouldn't read it, but maybe an older sibling might read it to them.
At what age do children? I don't have any children, so I have no reference. At what age do kids start to read?
Wow, that's a big question. It really depends on. It depends on their intellectual ability, obviously. If they're born with challenges, then it's going to be a little bit more delayed than your average child or a typical child. But the sooner that children are exposed to words and books, then the earlier reader that they will be. So they could be reading as early as 1.5, 2. It really depends. I mean, your genius children will be reading before they're 2 years old.
I know that when it comes to learning language, children are absolutely the best at learning whatever language the parents speak, and in parents or children that come from bilingual or multilingual households can pick up two, three languages all at the same time and just sort of interconnect them in their brains. It all just sounds like one language to them. After, according to studies that I've read, after about 6 or 7 years old, that ability disappears and the language has to be learned like an adult would learn how to speak a different language. It's interesting to me. So I didn't know if there was a correspondence or a correlation between the language ability and reading or not.
Mhm. I think so. I mean, I have 3 children, and 2 of my children were nonverbal. My middle daughter spoke a different language than you and I would have learned as a child. She had kind of what they call cluttering. So it almost sounds like gibberish. It's like digga 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 digga, like that. So what I learned was I actually had to teach her her own native language of English because she did not speak it. It was very fascinating to learn this. And so I was trying to figure out how in the world do I teach her her own language because she doesn't speak it naturally and she's not hearing it, even though her hearing was fine. So what I did was I took her alphabet. There was no way to teach her, like maybe if you were a child and your mom would teach you A, B, C. Um, I had to teach her it through sound and singing it. So we sounded out the words and we sang the letters in order for her to learn her alphabet. It was a very different way of learning. And that kind of opened my eyes to what I consider the magnificence of the brain and a child and learning in a different format. It doesn't have to be by the book, and it doesn't have to be in that typical, square or box that we've all grown up with. But I do know from research that people who have strokes and have brain issues can be taught language through singing. So that's kind of what I did with her. And children do learn and grasp so quickly at a young age. It's almost like they pop out understanding these things. Like our younger kids who understand technology and have to show us adults how to do things. It seems like they're born with it and equipped with it. It's very, very interesting. I do know that for myself, I remember at the age of 4 in preschool learning a song in French. I have never forgotten that in my entire life. And my mother taught me my phone number as a child in a song. So to this day, I can still remember what that phone number was from back when I was 4 and 5 years old. And so I don't think there's any limits to what children can learn at that early age and how they can learn. So even if you have a child with a challenge, you just have to kind of get creative to teach them.
That's an interesting phenomenon, because I don't know if you've ever seen the movie The King's Speech.
No, I want to see it though.
Okay, because that was one of the techniques that his speech therapist used to help him get rid of his stammer, was that he had him sing his speeches rather than speak them. And when he sang them, put them to melody, he didn't stammer.
It's like a child with Tourette's. I mean, I've literally witnessed a child with Tourette's who, when he's singing, all of his tics and things that he did were totally gone, and he was completely calm, and he had a gorgeous voice. This is about 2011, 2012. I was completely fascinated by this, that something like that would calm him down enough to be able to focus and say the words clearly. So it's pretty fascinating, isn't it?
It is fascinating. And it also, because I'm a musician, music has always had a very passionate connection to me. And to some degree, words do as well, but it's not the actual words, it's the way they're spoken. If I hear somebody who has a very eloquent voice doing a soliloquy, it'll invoke the same emotional response that a beautiful singer's voice will do. This is a tough topic to try to talk around, because it's like describing a smell.
Yeah.
and it's very difficult to sort of pinpoint exactly what it is. But there is something with the tones that human beings can create, be it spoken or singing, that invoke certain emotional responses in other people. And when you have children, like you said, who have certain challenges, music always seems to be the one that can get through to them.
It's a common denominator in so many facets, and it's you're touching on some very interesting points, because think about, there's people we can listen to, and we can hear them, and there are other people that we go, oh my gosh, your voice sounds like nails on a chalkboard. I can't tune in, I can't listen, I can't comprehend what you're saying, because it's offensive to my ears. And not that they're wrong or bad, and this is not a judgment, it's kind of an awareness that there are, like you said, certain tones that we can hear, and it's kind of like the energy of us can accept hearing that and hearing that noise, and that's why rock and roll, for some people, they can't listen to it, but they could listen to a piano or the harp,
Right.
or the flute, and it evokes so much emotion in them and takes you to places in your imagination, or is very peaceful and calming. I know that with my oldest daughter, because she's 20, so back then Baby Einstein was just coming out, and it was a mom who did some research and came up with this whole thing, and she ended up selling the whole program to Disney for like $10 million. It was really a great story. Um, so around that time, Baby Einstein was just coming out, and I had done similar research, being a new mom, about listening to orchestral music. So I played that a lot when I was pregnant with my oldest daughter. And funny enough, when she, was born, and her early toddlerhood, orchestral music and symphony music was her favorite. And now she's at college on a music scholarship, and she played for one of the youth symphony orchestras in Nashville in high school. So actually, music's been a really big part of our life. And so I saw the effect of that on her. I know the effect of music in our home when I'm homeschooling this year, primarily due to this COVID situation and just schools going back and forth. We made that choice. This is a new adventure we're on. And I notice, I've always noticed about how music can, calm children down, or it brings them to the height of their, you want to call it craziness, and their excitability. But with my youngest, I learned that if he's having a really hard time and he's very stressed or he's upset about something, if I come down to his level and I gently place my hand on his stomach and his back, and my tone goes under his, it diffuses the situation immediately. As opposed to if I raise my voice, it escalates everything. And that may seem like common sense, like, oh, well, that makes complete sense. Why doesn't everyone do that with their kids? But as parents, we get stretched to the limit a lot of times with our children. And so we react to the tone of their voice. You could have two children who one speaks to you in a certain way, and you go, and you feel towards that child, or you feel a reaction to that child, but maybe your other child has a tone in their voice that's very calming to you. So you interact and react to that child in a much calmer way. It's really fascinating.
Yeah, it really is. And as a matter of fact, it's not even just for children. When I have to go out of the house, I have two dogs. I put on jazz piano music, and they know that when they hear that music, they go and lie down because they know that they're not going with it. Sometimes we take them in the car, but when it's, not possible to take them, like to a doctor's appointment or something like that, we put the jazz music on and they go and lie down in their beds, and they know that means they're not going. And it's very interesting how you could train dogs to music. And music, it's really very effective for a lot of things, for people, for children, for dogs. Yeah, absolutely amazing.
Well,
We've got I'm sorry to interrupt. We got about 1 minute left. Is there a particular theme to your books, or what is the message for your books?
Well, it is the message from the very beginning, and what I'm continuing with my writing for children, because I do adult stuff as well, and I'm also collaborating and ghostwriting and things like that. But for children, for me, it's very important to teach them self-empowerment and tools that they can use from very early on in their young life that they can take with them through life. So self-regulation of emotions, empowering words they can use. So the theme from the beginning of this was being able to see the perfection that lies within the imperfection of life and human beings. And, if a child is born with a disability, we as mothers and caregivers and parents and dads and aunts and uncles and grandparents, we see that perfection within them, even though on the outside someone else might not see it, but we see it. So it's to raise that awareness in children, to have that empowerment of themselves, no matter how they are, they're okay. And throughout these 3 books in this series are I am statements. There's a page of those in each book. And I think I am statements, I am happy, I am joyful, I am amazing. Those are very empowering words that even on your worst day, if you can mutter out those words, you can change the emotion and the energy of how you're feeling. And it's free. We have it with us all the time. Nobody can ever take that from you. Nobody can take your language or your words from you. So I think it's important to teach kids how to be empowered, how to empower their friends, and how to motivate each other and how to lift up, because some kids never get to learn this. So that's what the main theme of these books are about.
We do have to wrap this up. Unfortunately, we are out of time. Do you have a website that you want to give out?
Absolutely. So it's www.maryejackson.com. And the link there, there's links there to go to Amazon to buy the books. The audiobooks will be up soon. There's a CD with the first one because there's 10 songs in the back of the book that were originally written. And the third one will be out the 20th of this month. I'm so excited. And I am on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram. And I have, there's also links to my author show and my show for special needs as well on there on my website.
Great. Mary, thank you so much for coming on the show and sharing with us. And best of luck with your books and everything you're doing.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. I really